I'm Manfred Phillip. I'm hosting this event on behalf of several sponsors. And let me name the sponsors first. The Academic Engagement Network, the Bell Zeller Scholarship Trust Fund, the Center for the Study of the Holocaust, Genocide, Crimes Against Humanity, the CUNY Academy for the Humanities and Sciences, the CUNY Alliance for Inclusion, the Ralph Bunche Institute for International Studies, and the World Affairs Council of San Antonio, who've sponsored a number of events that I've been involved in. I'm thankful to them for participating. We have participation by Lior Yetnikov and David Rahman. Janet Gonzalez, who's not here, will be working on the YouTube video afterwards. But right now, let me talk about our speakers. Khaled Abu Awad is the founder of Roots, a grassroots movement of understanding and transformation among Israelis and Palestinians. He's chair of Al Tariq, the Palestinian Institution for Development and Democracy. He received the UNESCO Mayona Singh Prize for the promotion of nonviolence and tolerance in 2011. And he's described by the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Center in Jordan as one of the world's 500 most influential Muslims. Yaakov Nagin is the other speaker. He's the director of Or Torah Stone's Blickle Institute for Interfaith Dialogue, the related Beit Midrash Center for Judaism and Humanity, and a rabbi at Otniel Yeshiva. He's also co-chair of the Abrahamic Reunion, an Israeli-Palestinian organization which seeks peace by making connections and working to make religion a unifying rather than a dividing factor. He's author of multiple works on philosophy and the Talmud. Now, our going first today will be Khaled Abu Awad, who's located right now in Bethlehem. And Khaled, you have the floor. Thank you for coming. Thank you for both of you for coming. It's really an exciting event, and you can see from the people coming in, they're excited as well. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Khaled, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Khaled Abu Awad. I'm one of the founder of Roots Initiative in the area. It's a local. It started before 8 years ago as a local initiative in the area of Bethlehem and Hebron, and then we move to the Jordan Valley, and then to Nablus and the region there. I'm one of the founder. I'm a Palestinian. I'm a Muslim. I'm a religious person. Rav Yaakov Nagin is my partner in the interfaith dialogue that we lead in our Roots Center, and we are trying to see how we can help solving the conflict between our two people, the Palestinian and the Israel conflict. I start be involved in the dialogue between the two sides since 2001. Let me start. I will start a little bit about my family and my personal story, which is start with the conflict since 1948. I am a son of a refugee Palestinian family. My parents used to live before 1948 in our village, in a village called Kubebet Ibn Awad. Kubebet Ibn Awad. Kubebet Ibn Awad, they call it nowadays Lachish. For those who know the area here, there is a place there called Kubeba. This is the location of our village where we have been before 1948. So in 1948, because of the war, we have been pushing out of our village. My father, my grandfather, my family, they move. They thought that this is going to be for a couple of days and they will be back. So they took a little bit things with them. and the couple of days is continue until today. So later, my parents moved to an area called Khalit Afane, or in another name, Gosh Etzion. Gosh Etzion, we used to live since 1948 until 1967. 1967, the Six-Day War. Again, my family and me, I've been born 6 months before the war. My father took us all and he moved to Jordan. We spent 2 weeks in Jordan, 2 weeks, and then the war came down and my father said, I have nothing, I don't belong to Jordan, I have nothing in Jordan, I want to go back. So he crossed the Jordan River, he and another other Palestinian families. They bring us from one side to the other side on their shoulders back to a village called Beit Umar, because where we have been living before the Six-Day War, it became a military area. So my father went to the village close to that area called Beit Umar. There we grown. I grown, my brothers, my sisters, as a refugee family, and we ask all the time, why? Where is our land? Where is our home? Do we belong to this village or we belong to our village? Who took our village? Who took my grandfather's land? And all the time, we are seeing that Israel is the guilty side. The Israel state pushed us out of our village. The Israel state took our land, and we start growing with this idea until 1987, the first Intifada, the Stone Intifada. 1987, when the Intifada start, we as a family, led by our mother, her name is Fatima, her nickname is Yusuf. She's very known in the Palestinian area. We became part of the leadership of the Intifada in the whole Palestinian area. She's our leader. We are following her, and we start, as we call it, to fight the occupation in order to get our freedom. And this has put us face to face with the Israel security system. We all have been arrested. Our mother, she had been arrested. She spent more than 6.5 years in the Israel jail. I spent 1.5 years. My brother, Ali, spent 4 years. My sister, 1 year. My brother, 1 year. Until 1993. 1993, when the first peace agreement have been signed between us, the Palestinian side, and Israel, Arafat and Rabin. We as a family were looking to this agreement as something good. We support it, we want it to work. It's like to open a new page between us and the Israel side and start living in peace. Yes, it costs us a price that we divide the land between our two people, but it's okay. This is the price of peace. We accept it and we support our leader and we support the agreement. And we said, that's it. Our job to fight and the resistance is ended, and we have to wait for our leaders. There's a negotiation between the two sides, and there are steps in the agreement, and it will take a time, and we have to be patient and to wait until this has happened. And this is what we do. We decide that we will live as other Palestinian normal families, working, studying, doing the normal thing, and watching the situation going up and down, but we still have a hope that this will be ended the moment that the agreement will be completed between the two sides until 2000. the 16th of November 2000, this day, when a military Israel group entered to the village of Beit Umar, and they shot one of the people in Beit Umar while he driving his car. Is my brother Yusuf, 31 years old. An Israel soldier shot him and he killed him without any reason. It's like when the soldier entered to the village, of course, the people start stoning them, and the army used the cars, the Palestinian cars. They stopped the Palestinian cars in between. And one of the cars is my brother's car. My brother Yusuf, when he's seen that the stones is destroyed his car, he went out and he asked the kids from the village to stop stoning because we are in the middle. And they respect him. He is one of Abu Awad's family. We have strong national identity in the village. The people respect us. They all know us as a leader of this process to the freedom. One of the Israeli soldiers, I think he didn't understand what's going on here. He's a soldier with a gun and he cannot stop them. And this guy, this Palestinian guy, just ask them and they accept, they do what he asked. So this soldier become very angry. He start calling my brother in a bad words and he start running to his direction. Very close to my brother, face to face. He put the gun in his head and he shot him. He killed him. The officer there became angry on this soldier. He started call him what ma'asitali in Hebrew. What do you do for me? What do you do for me? What do you do to me here? And he took the soldier, went out of the village. And we got what's happened, and we start be thinking, what's going on here? Where's the peace? We're waiting for the peace, and instead we got my brother killed. Who killed him? Why they killed him? We stay home as it's coming in our culture for 3 days. Thousands of people come to our home to join us, our pain, our losing of Yusuf, bring their solidarity to us. Most of them have been okay. Some of them start blaming us. Like, this is the way that you choose about what's family. You choose the way of peace. And those people, they don't understand the language of peace. The only language that they can understand is the language of violence, the language of power. So you make a mistake and look, this is the result. Of course, we haven't been in a situation that we can think about what they say, because we have been very close with what's happened to us, with the new situation inside our family, with Yusuf, with his 2 little kids, Yazan, 1 year old, Bayan, 3 years old, and what's going to be with them, how they can grow without father. We finished the 3 days, and after 1 or 2 weeks, we got someone who asked us if we can allow a group from the other side to come and to join us, to bring their solidarity to Abu Awad's family. We said, of course, no, because in our eyes, in our mind, they all guilty. They all kill my brother. So do they want to come and say sorry after they kill him? This is not acceptable. We don't We don't want to see anyone from the other side. Again and again, they stand on that they want to meet us. They told us, Palestinians who have been come from their side, as a messenger of them, they told us that those people are peacemakers. They have a different message. They are standing with the Palestinian right. They are supporting the Palestinian right and the Palestinian needing. At the end, we said, okay, they can come. We host them in my home, in my house. They came, I think 6 or 7 Jewish family. They sit and they listen to us. We tell them the whole story of Yusuf, what's happened to Yusuf and how they kill Yusuf, their army. And of course, we've seen in their eyes a lot of positive feeling that they feel our pain. They understand the story, they feel the story, they feel our feeling. And most of them have been crying. And then they start telling us a little bit about their stories also, every one of them. One of them is a Jewish religious person. His son have been kidnapped and killed by Hamas. And within this, he came and he chose that he will use his position as a father who lost his son to lead reconciliation between the two sides instead of revenge. To look to someone like this, to hear his story, father who lost his son have been kidnapped and killed, and he succeed to go over all this pain and to come to the other side with a message of forgiveness and peace. It's like you need to be like a mountain to do something like this, because we are in this feeling, we are on this situation, and we know how much it pains us. How do you think when you lose one of your family? Another story that make me a little bit stop and start asking myself, I want to understand what's going on here more and more. It's a story of family from Telmont. Mother and father of 13 years old daughter. Her name is Batchen, I think. Batchen, yes. She and her other 2 girlfriends, they went to Tel Aviv, to Dizengoff Center, and there, a Palestinian with a suicide bomber caused to 3 of them to be killed and other innocent people. The mother of this daughter, this little girl, she read to us part of her diary. She writes a lot, but part of what she have been written in her diary is mention the Arab as a neighbor. And she dreamed the day that between them and the Arab, their neighbors, will be a peace, and they can visit each other as a neighbor. Which means this girl, she's an innocent girl with a huge humanity, a white heart, and she became a victim of this conflict. She had been killed by Palestinian. I'm a Palestinian. The one who killed her, he do what he do in the name of the Palestinian people, the Palestinian right, the Palestinian freedom. And I ask myself, can I accept this? Is this the only way that we can achieve our right? Is there any other way? Or this is the only way? Can I be part of this as a Palestinian? And my answer to myself is, I cannot be part of this. I cannot accept that we deal on this way because we are right. Since that meeting, me and the whole family, the whole member of my family, we start be more and more interested to meet and to listen to more stories from the other side. We know all what's happened in our side as Palestinian, but we know a few about the other side. This story brings us to a conclusion that any one of us, Palestinian or Israel, can be in one time, in one place, the victim of this conflict. No one of us protected from this. So we all need to end this. How we should deal, this is our question. We look to the meeting as the first step to move or to start to taking the way that we think it's the right way, is to meet the other side, to start telling your story, listening to their story, putting the two facts in one place, connect them, and try to understand the whole fact of what's going on here and how we can, what we should do in order to change this. We are the partner with an Israeli group to establish the Bereaved Family Forum, PCFF, Bereaved Family for Peace and Reconciliation. We are the Palestinian founder of this, together with the same group. I've been there for 6 years as a co-general manager of the forum. And then we've seen ourselves in front of our responsibility inside our society, our side, how we can spread this message, the message of reconciliation, how we can go over our anger and be a little bit patient and try to think in a different way, try to control our suffering, our anger, and deal in a way that can help all of us without having this huge number of victims every day. We start Palestinian movement called The Way, Al-Tariq. And then we continue until we start our initiatives, Roots. Roots is targeting the extreme wing right side in the Israel society as part of the Israel people. We find through our meeting with them that we have a lot to discuss. And this is what we are doing in Roots. I will move the microphone to Rav Yaakov, and we will continue. Rav Yaakov.
Okay, thank you, Khalid. Shalom, and thank you to all of you for joining us. From Khalid's moving story, there's so much that could be learned. Khalid, I think you teach all of us that a broken heart can also be an open heart. When something breaks, it opens up. And the open heart means that suffering that you've had or can open your heart to empathize with the suffering of others. But what your story teaches, and as you said, that for this to happen, we need we need encounters. We need to meet each other and to speak to each other. This and more people in our areas realize this truth. On this Thursday, my yeshiva has the annual memorial for students and staff who have been killed by terror attacks. One of them was Mickey Mark, the director of our yeshiva, my friend and neighbor. And during his funeral was held in the yeshiva, more than 1,000 people. The Rosh Yeshiva, his brother-in-law points out to me in the crowd and says, Rav Yaakov, you will continue speaking and making connections with our Palestinian neighbors. And in fact, that terror attack shows how there's so many sides to reality. Because although Mickey was killed, his wife, Chavi, her life was saved because the first person on the scene of an attack on the road was a Palestinian doctor who gave first aid and saved Chavi's life. And since then has been very close with the family and the community. Several years ago, I was at a conference in Amman, Jordan, with the representatives of every country from the Middle East. And the conference was devoted about how to deal with the problem of violence in the Middle East. And in 3 words, they gave us the path. And please, if you remember anything else I mentioned tonight, these 3 words, do not forget. Connection before correction. Okay? Connection before correction. This deep insight realizes that so much of the problem is the disconnection. The disconnection is the source of fear, fear that leads to hatred, and hatred that leads to violence. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in explaining how is it that people do such violence in the name of God, the religion, their people, he says there's something called pathological dualism. Pathological dualism divides the world into good and evil, light and darkness, those beloved by God and those who are hated by God. If this is the reality you live in, this explains how somebody could choose to do such violence against those who are the side of the darkness, the evil, the hated of God. But the only remedy which it could to this disconnection, it is only by person-to-person connection, by that connection. And this is the deep reason why boycotts are undermining the hope of the future. It's not about is it who's right and who's wrong? Whose side are you on? Is it fear or not fear? It's to understand the only path to build the future is only from this encounter, this connection from person to person. As the poet Rumi has said, beyond ideas of right thinking, beyond ideas of wrong thinking, there is a field. There we will meet. And for me, the Abu Awad family lands, who generously allow the activities of Roots to take place, this is that field that we can meet. And part of the work is to replicate that throughout the West Bank, so that many communities will have that safe place to meet and connect despite the different views. The one aspect of our work together is also as religious leaders. One of our very dear friend, colleague, who has since passed away, Rabbi Menachem Frumin, his great insight was, if religion is part of the problem, religion must be part of the solution. Religion could lead me to disconnect, to say that they are serving a foreign, different God. But our religion could also connect us to say that the same God that we love, we pray to, that we believe cares about us, is the same God that you, the other, is praying to. So I would like to share 3 dimensions of what happens when there is an encounter between people. The meetings that we try again and again to, on a grassroots level, to have taking place throughout Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The first thing that happens when we encounter each other is we change what we think about the other. There's so much we don't know. One story, my neighbor is Rabbi Yehuda Glick, was a proponent of Jewish prayer on the Temple Mount. Because of that, there was an assassination attempt, because this was seen as something against Islam, and he barely survived, miraculously survived being critically injured after an assassination attempt. And he later became part of the Israeli Knesset. But in the Knesset, he founded Israel's first Jewish Muslim caucus for developing relationships between Judaism and Islam. And when in the Knesset, they wanted to pass a law to curtail the Muazzin, which is the call to prayer, which many felt that was disturbing them. Yehuda led the struggle against having a law. He said, this is something we need to discuss with each other. To make a law to curtail religious activity in a mosque, this will be seen as an affront to Islam and Muslims of Israel. And Yehuda succeeded. And at the emergency meeting in the Knesset, the head of the Muslim Waqf, the Waqf is in charge of holy places for Islam, he yells out, there's something I have to say. So Yehuda says, so say it. And the head of the Muslim Waqf, after hearing Yehuda speak, says, I change everything I think about you. And Yehuda, with his sense of humor, says, oh no, they're going to take away my bodyguards now. But here again, there's the Yehuda, public enemy number 1 for some in the Muslim world. But when they meet him, a person who believes that the Temple Mount is sacred because this is also a place of Al-Aqsa, because this is a place of prayer for not only Jews, for Muslims and Christians, realizing how different he is. Another element of the encounter, not only do we change what we think about each other, but there are truths that we have in our heads that we take them down into our hearts. I think many people have the right ideas in their heads, but they don't really feel that in their heart. I know one story, we can know that according to the halakha and according also in the Quran, Jews and Muslims pray to the same God. But is it in your head or is it in your heart? So one day, my wife on a Friday was praying in Hebron, in the tomb of the patriarchs. And she was all alone. It was a Friday afternoon. But suddenly, the muazzin on the mosque of Ibrahim starts, and it's very, very loud, and it interrupts her prayer. So at first she said she was upset and annoyed, but then she says, what, am I crazy? We're praying to the same God. So she said, let me join them. And when she joined in with the muazzin, she realized what a beautiful voice was the muazzin. And on that Friday, she asked me, is it really a person or is it maybe only a recording? So that Sunday, I was at a meeting in Hebron, with members of the Jewish community of Hebron, together with some members of the Arab community. And I asked them, and one of the Arab group, Sheikh Abu Snena, Ahmed Abu Snena, says, of course it's a person, it's a relative of mine, and I will send him your greetings. But several weeks later, the story continues. I was in Beit Jala, which is at another meeting, and I see that the Muslim participants are all excited because this new person came. And I said, who is he? They say, oh, he's from Al-Khalil, meaning, which is the Arabic name for Hebron, meaning the friend. And he has a very beautiful voice. And right away I say, excuse me, are you the muezzin of the mosque of Ibrahim? And sure enough, he was the muezzin. So the circles connect. So yes, before that, I know in my head, we are praying to the same God, but now I felt it more in my heart. And this is now the last point I'll mention before we get to the next part. If the first thing that takes place, we change what we think of the other. The second, truths in our mind become in our heart. But the third, and maybe the most beautiful, is you create a connection between people. And this is one of the most beautiful blessings. When two people are connected in true friendship, when the other becomes a brother, this is a transformative, makes the world that much more beautiful. Sometimes people say, Rav Yaakov, the fact that you meet all these Palestinians, do you think this is going to bring peace? I say, if I have a connection with a Palestinian friend, this already is peace. I want to multiply this by 1,000,000. But this is not only a path to peace, this already is. And there's something, and I will end. In Pakistan, there's a saying that when you do business with somebody, you have to drink 3 cups of tea. The first cup, you drink as strangers. The second, you drink as friends. The third, you drink as family. And with family, you could do business. And I will end by saying that I've drunk many cups of tea and coffee with my dear friend and brother, Khalid. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I have asked people to ask questions in the chat function, but before I do, I'd in particular like to thank the Hillel group at CUNY. Ilya Bratman is leading that group for bringing in lots of students and co-sponsoring this event. Many of the students have been logging in as we've been speaking, and in fact, many have been registering initially while this has been going on. So some of the students did not quite hear all of the moving part that Khaled spoke initially, but rest assured, we'll do our best to make this recording available video on YouTube, so that if you came in late, we will let you hear and listen to the whole thing. I'm going to turn this over to Leora Yetnikov, who's been looking at questions, and please do ask them, and then she can present the questions to the speakers. But before I do, Yaakov, you had spoken. Khaled, do you want to say something in response before we go to the questions?
Yeah, my friend, my brother, Rav Yaakov, he mentioned the religion as part of the conflict. And this is one of the main questions that we have here. Is the religion part of the conflict or not? Whatever, if it's yes or not, in both, we believe that religion, for sure, it can be part of the solution. And in order to make it part of the solution, we should read it again. And this is part of what we are doing. Me personally, the last 30 years in my life, I spent a lot trying to understand, because I hear a lot that the Islam is against Judaism, Judaism against Islam, and etc. etc. Is it right? If God asked me not to reconcile with the Jewish people, then I cannot do it. So I need the permission of God because I'm a believer. And for that, I start study my holy book, the Holy Quran, and try to understand what is it, what God says about this. Is it okay or not? And now I'm sure, and because of this, we are leading together the interfaith dialogue inside Roots every week between people, religious people from the two sides, start or trying to explain or together to understand and to build the bridge of religion in order to empower the way to peace between the two sides. So that's what I want to say. Maybe later, if we have question, I can explain what I'm saying about religion. So, okay, Philip.
Okay, Yaakov, do you want to say something before we go to questions, or should we go to questions now? It's your choice.
So perhaps I think maybe in the context of the questions, many things will come up. But let me add, because time is so limited, Khalid worked on some source sheets that I believe will be sent to everybody, sources from the Quran and the Hadith. I also sent some articles so that the questions maybe we could deal with now, and the important things Khalid would like to add, either in responding to the questions or please read what he's carefully prepared. Thank you.
Okay, Lyra, why don't you come on?
Sure. So the questions are starting to come in. So this first one, I think, is addressed specifically to Khaled.
You can turn on your video, Lyra, if you wish. So.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I didn't realize it was off. Can everyone see me? Okay, so the student asks, she's a student from Baruch College. So if she understands correctly, Yaakov mentioned that boycotts pose an obstacle to peace and progress. She's curious to hear Khaled's perspective on the BDS movement and whether it is an effective tool, especially as a leader in his community who is advocating for change through nonviolent means.
For me, anything can help having peace between both of us will be okay. But my question, we are two sides that we have a conflict, a real conflict. And do you think that the boycott will help us in the way of reconciliation between both of us? I don't think our situation is similar to South Africa. I think we have a different situation. I think that I will say it in a different way. We are two, have conflict. Any other side, if he want to be, we need him to bring peace between both of us, not to support this side against this side or this side against this side. We are, I think nowadays, 5 million Palestinian and 5 million Israel. For me, I believe that we both belong to the same piece of land. And we both have a problem. We both have a responsibility how to solve it. For me, I think, let's say, the Jewish people through the last 2,000 years, they have been in many difficult situations everywhere in the world, ended in the Holocaust with the Holocaust, and then they came back. For me, as mentioned in the Quran, they came back to the Holy Land. Of course, these 2,000 years make them a traumatized people. And for me, I'm looking to us, the Palestinian people, we should understand how to be a doctor for this. The fear that stand behind all the decision of those people, the Jewish people here, they're afraid from everything. They feel alone in the Middle East. And around them, all around them is Arab and Islamic countries. And what they hear from us all the time is a message of hatred or refuse them or attacking them. And and their fear stopped them to understand that without solving the problem with the Palestinian people, you cannot live in security. And the only way that they believe they will have their security is the military way. What we try to do is, let's understand that the military solution will not give any of us to live in peace for long. This is going to be a solution for a short time, and the situation can be changed anytime in the Middle East. What they will do, so the only way is we should find the way how to agree in some way, having peace between both of us and living together as a neighbor, as two state, as three state, as 10 state. Now the BDS is trying, of course, to make a kind of push or pressure on the Israel side from outside, and instead it's make a lot of those who really want to help having peace here feel that this is again going against us, and how we can trust them if this is what they are doing. So for me, I don't think the BDS will help a lot solving our problem. I think the opposite. Stopping this and try to change our language, to change what we are saying, what we are doing, both, and to understand that we both live on this land together. We already live together. The question is not if we can or not living together, because we already live together in the street, in the work, in the supermarket, everywhere. The question is how we can continue living together in peace, how we can continue living together without destroying everyone, the happiness of the other one, the happiness moment of the other one, the freedom of the other one. So this is my answer. I hope it's.
Thank you, Khaled. So I'm going to summarize. There's a few questions that came in that kind of have the same theme, and I'll address it to both of you so you guys can decide who will address it first. But the general theme of the question is, and honestly, it's really inspiring. You guys are really inspiring, I think not just to me, but to everyone here. How would you advise students and non-students to bridge the conversation between people in North America, in classrooms, who are diametrically on opposite sides, who can't have this conversation that you guys are having? What advice would you give to help facilitate those conversations?
אני לא הבנתי מה הכוונה בשאלה.
כן. אז ח'אלד, היא בהקשר של העולם האקדמי בארצות הברית, אתה נמצא באיזה קמפוס, אתה פלסטיני, אתה פרו-ישראלי, ואתם לא מוכן, איך ניתן לגשר אחד על השני? אז אולי נתחיל So, I think that gets back to that statement of Rumi that I mentioned before. In fact, on the West Bank, there's a town called near Jericho that at the entrance in 3 languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and English, they have that marvelous quote: beyond ideas of right thinking, beyond ideas of wrong thinking, there is a field, there we will meet. I feel if there has to be some basic motivation for connection, a belief, maybe seeing that people can connect will give hope for those to see that this is a path. but to realize if you start about who's right and who's wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. It's first the connection, then the correction. And maybe one issue would be to find about what are places that we can connect. And that's why I feel the religious dimension is often helpful. It's less explosive than the political dimension. To say that, to have, let's say, Jews and Muslims, since these are the main parties compact, to some encounters about, because Jewish sources respect Islam, Maimonides writes about Islam being belief in the unity of God unblemished, whereas the Quran often talks about the Jewish people as Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, and somehow a discussion that maybe wouldn't right away go to the rights and the wrongs, but something that will touch in something that we can connect about. And I think the human encounter itself will create a place that ultimately to think about the more explosive issues.
Yeah, I agree. The meeting is the most powerful thing, and not only we need from all the other sides to be messenger of peace between both of us. Don't be pro me or pro the other side, be pro solution, I will say. I can see another question, maybe I've seen here all about the Sheikh Jarrah and all the violence that we have. Of course, this is the situation here. Because of all these things, we are working to change it. We are working to face this, to stop all this kind of violence and to protect the life of the people and to give a better future for our sons, for our next generation. This is our main goal behind all of what we are doing. If it's in Roots or in any other groups that having the message of peace between the two sides. This is what we've seen as you and try to stop.
So to vocalize that question for people who aren't necessarily paying attention to the chat, and to give you a chance also, Yaakov, to address the question, do you guys want to speak for a moment about how, right, in this era of where you are forging connections, how do you handle when there are surges in the violence, when there are events on both sides that are just tragedy? How do you move past that, and how do you help each other through that?
It's happened many times. Okay.
Okay. I think part of it is that it's speaking out. I know, for example, when after there was a firebombing in Duma, that in a Palestinian family, parents and a child were killed by arson. It happened on a Thursday. And I remember, I'd gone to sleep already. Early Friday morning, my students are calling and saying, we have to do something about this. And on Sunday, by Sunday, we had in Gush Etzion, near where it's Shorshim, there was a prayer vigil with hundreds of people there, mostly settlers. We had 4 Palestinians talk about pain and many other issues, to have a prayer vigil to protest this. And this was true on the other side as well, when the 3 boys were kidnapped and murdered in 2014. There too, some of the people in our area, including Palestinians, came also to a prayer vigil. So it is important to speak out. And I think in the prayer vigil we had after Duma, Yair Lapid showed up. We didn't want to invite any politicians, but he his own accord. And I think he made a very significant comment. He said the real struggle, it's not between the right and the left, the Jews and the Arabs. The real struggle is between the extremists on both sides that are doing everything they can to pit us against each other. And this is the challenge, not to let those extremists, where they're doing this violence because they want to pit us against each other. So that's why it's so significant to speak out and also protest when sometimes things are done wrong. There were on both sides, we've spoken out. There was a story once that when Avigdor Lieberman became the Minister of Defense, and Lieberman is somebody who's very, tries to be very tough about things. He had a policy that not to return bodies of people that are killed in any security events. And there was a story about a young man from Beit Omar who was killed in a incident. Whether he was or wasn't throwing stones, it was an incident that this shouldn't have happened. And Lieberman, with his new policy, says, until we finish looking into this, we're not going to return the body. And we know from our friends from Beit Omar, in addition to the pain of he's not being allowed to bury, he spoke to the army says, we're against people high in the army say, this is terrible. There's no reason. It's just some policy of this new minister. So rabbis from our area, from West Bank rabbis, we signed a petition. We pressured Lieberman not only for that particular young man, but in general to change that policy. And I remember afterwards, Arab televisions channels from the Middle East came to my home in Othniel to interview me because they were surprised about it. But this happened because we know each other. Because often, if you know the other people, you know what their pain is. Sometimes you can't solve it, but sometimes knowing a bit out, you could speak out and make a difference.
Khaled, do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, it's okay. You can continue.
So someone asked to follow up on this. In the United States, there's anytime there's a mass shooting, people will say thoughts and prayers, and what more concrete action can you encourage people to do locally and internationally as well to help spread your goal of connection for peace?
Okay, Khaled, would you like to begin?
I will say first to enter to a kind of competition who is suffering more and who's guilty and blaming the other side. This will not bring us to any point. We should stop. Every one of us should start take a responsibility. If we are youth or people in our age or anyone, all of us, we should stop have the feeling that every one of us is a victim and start crying and blaming the other side. This will give us nothing. Let's stop this. Let's take responsibility, not only blaming. Yes, of course, the other side is guilty, but I'm also guilty. I have my responsibility. I have also things that I should do, and the same from the other side. This is the way. This is in this case, if we start thinking like this, everything will be changed. But if we are sitting, every one of us, and he trying to have as much as he can from the other side, and we are not trusting each other, and we both afraid from each other, and we afraid from the future, and such whether how we can achieve any kind of going to the to have any new trust is one of the problems that we suffer from, and trust is something that have two sides, because trust is between two people. if I don't trust you, the solution is start from your side, your behavior. How do you react? How do you deal? What do you do? What do you say is something that I'm looking to, and then I will decide, can I trust you or not? So to this I call our responsibility to build trust. Secondly, our values. You know, my first meeting with the other side, I came with the idea. I know I've hear all the time that the Israel flag have two blue line, and these two blue line is mentioned the two river, the Nile River and the Purat River. And their dream or their plan is to have the big Israel state between these two rivers. And when I start ask the people from the other side, is this true? Is this your plan? They start looking to me in a way, what do you do? What do you say? This is the first time we hear this from you. So we have a lot of values, a lot of old stories that we have mentioned the other side in a very bad way. All these things is, in my eyes, it's responsibility. Do what you should do, and then ask the other side to do.
Thank you. So maybe I would echo and add that first, as Khaled said, in terms of, I think there are three issues which is important to get as many people to agree on, which is that both sides here are connected to the land. Both sides here are sharing in the suffering, and both share the responsibility to resolve this conflict. To who more, who less, that's not important. The important is to acknowledge these three factors. And then the big question is, how can we build a better future for all of us? And ultimately, I feel the part of the answer, I have many thoughts on this issue, even at practical level. I sent to Professor Phillips something to send, but part of it is, I think one of the major mistakes of the Oslo process was not realizing how we need a bottom-up approach. That feeling that good fences make good neighbors, not realizing that when Robert Frost said that, he was speaking ironically. People love blaming the leaders, but the truth is it's not really the leaders' fault. The leaders can't be better than the people. If the people are not ready, the people aren't connected, the leaders are not going to do it. So it's a long term, which is people to people. But I feel it's not just prayer vigils. I feel when you open your eyes and your hearts to the others, there's so many things you notice that you didn't realize before, that you become sensitive to. And the more people that are aware of this, the more changes can take place.
Thank you, Yaakov and Khaled. There's one big more question that we haven't touched on. Do we have time? I don't know. Yeah,
Yes.
you guys willing? Yeah, okay.
Yes, we do from our point of view. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
we're here.
Okay, so
We have another 2 minutes.
Khaled has 2 more minutes. Okay, Khaled. So I believe this question is more addressed to you in any case, which is it safe for Palestinians to openly criticize the BDS movement and to fraternize openly, publicly with Israeli Jews? Is your effort growing in your respective communities? Or do you feel that you draw hostile criticism from each of your communities? You are beyond inspirational, and you remind us what matters most among people. So if you'd like to address that.
Me personally, first of all, I don't think that we as Palestinian, we are trying to to kill each other. I don't remember that any of the Palestinian peace activists have been killed or be treated in a bad way by Palestinian people. Especially when you talk about us, we as a family, we paid a high price because of this conflict, and we got a very good and high level of respect in our society. Secondly, I believe the majority of the Palestinian people and the Israel people want to live in peace. They support peace. And as Rav Yaakov mentioned, that we have few here and there in both sides, that peace is not in their agenda. Peace is going against their benefit. And because of this is a kind of business. For them, the continuance of this conflict is supporting their business. I am not afraid. I haven't been faced with any kind of behavior against me or any of us in my community. I feel I have the whole space to say what I believe and to do what I believe for peace. For peace, it's different. If we are talking about doing things that can harm the others, this is something else. But if you are dealing to have peace, then do the maximum that you can.
Mhm. And let me just add to that. I think it's important to hear always Khaled in totality, that anyone who's heard him from the beginning knows how he is a proud Palestinian who's out for the future of his people. And it's coming from that place of his deep concern and dedication to his people and his cause that has led to this approach.
Okay, I'd like to, at this point, I'd like to thank both of you. Khaled, you said you had to leave in a couple minutes. Is that correct? Then
Now,
in
Yeah.
fact, I'm sorry.
yeah,
So thank you to both of you. I would encourage everyone here to look at the YouTube video after we posted, because many of you came in late and didn't hear all of Khaled's talk at the beginning. Leora, thank you for jumping in at a relatively short notice, a very short notice, in fact, when another arrangement didn't work out. David, thank you for your important assistance here. Thanks again to both of our speakers, our commentators, our conversationalists, Yaakov and Khaled. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this today, late in the evening for you. And I hope that you have a great remaining good rest of the evening. Any more comments before we go?
Thank you all.
Mr. Philip.
Thank you all. Thank you all. I will say the last message. It's from me personally. I think we as a human being have a responsibility also around the whole life on this earth. I think God stopped sending messenger from the sky, and I think we have a lot of messenger between us. Those people who fight or who try to help the poor people, the hungry people, to fight the disease, to fight for the nature, for the animals, for against the violence, against the hatred. We all, as a human being, we are partner making this world better. And I think God trusts us because he said, you now can take responsibility. Let's fill our responsibility in the right way and do what we should do in order to have better life for all of us, whatever our religion or our nationality or anything else. Thank you. Shukran jazilan. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalami.
Thank you. Thanks again to our sponsors for this event. We appreciate that we have an audience thanks to our sponsors. Okay. All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.